Housefeld.
Here.
Let the record show that all members are present. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the written minutes of the September 23rd council meeting?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to approve the written minutes of the September 23rd council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Ms. Housefeld to approve the written minutes of the September 23rd council meeting. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right, we'll move to reports of administrative officials. Mayor, Mr. Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to start by thanking St. Bernard resident Margaret Singer for her generous donation of native plants that now are growing on the hillside down in Lower Ross Park. These native pollinator gardens were a collaborative effort with our generous resident and Sarah Ackerman, an arborist and horticulturist with Being Native Nursery and Consulting. I think it's a really nice improvement of the park, and we look forward to some future plantings here in the future throughout the village. And also like to thank our service department park crew and our resident volunteers who have assisted with the watering, which needs to obviously take place for several weeks after the plants have been put in. Also like to welcome Patrol Officer Caitlin Rutherford. Caitlin was sworn in on Sunday, October 3rd, and we're working closely with her field training officers for the next several months as she learns more about our wonderful community. I look forward to you all meeting her very soon. I'd also like to thank the Recreation Department for organizing this past weekend's St. Bernard Community Halloween Campout. It was a great event, and we had a huge turnout from throughout the community for the costume contest and trick-or-treat around the track. Also, trick-or-treat in St. Bernard will be held on Sunday, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. Also, I do have a request for laws, contracts, and claims. As you're aware, Valerie will not be here this evening. Her mother had a stroke and she had to be out of town. That we do have a request for a proposed medical marijuana dispensary in the village, which actually falls into potential zoning issue, but it is her request and actual suggestion that we potentially move this into laws, contracts, and claims to determine whether or not we want to have any kind of zoning requirements and where they may be located. So she wanted to discuss that, but obviously couldn't be here this evening. And also I wanted to follow up to see if there's been any feedback from the members of the Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee as to whether or not, after reviewing some of the other issues for the short-term rentals, whether or not any comments or have anything that you'd want to potentially have included in that.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
the only thing from my perspective, Jonathan, nothing to be inclusive, but Leanne said that she had something in the tax department that might be able to help us form that ordinance. I don't know if she sent it to you or not.
Mr. President, she did not, but I'll follow up with her then.
Okay, that's the only thing.
Okay.
I don't know, but other than that, I think you were pretty inclusive with your ideas. So.
All right.
Good, thank you. Any report from the auditor? I watched the last council meeting since I was not here, and, okay, she had asked for some certain ones. Report from the law director? Nope. Treasurer, Mr. Ungrue?
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I have the statement from First State Bank for the memorial fund that we have down there. The balance at the end of September totals $5,659.32. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like council to make an appropriation for 2016. That will be fuel and oil. As you know, we're been driving to and from Rumpke, which is greater distance, and if my calculations are right, we'll need about $15,000 to take us to the end of the year. And also an appropriation for 2021. We decided to remove the sidewalk on Delmar Court and widen the street there, and that appropriation will be $9,350. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
Tommy, I know we went to Rumpke to save money. How much difference between, was it Republic River versus Rumpke?
Mr. President.
Mr. Paul.
So what I had done was a study and told them, all the drivers to take the same route. And we came up with a figure that we are still saving $30,000 going to Rumpke. To further you on that, Rumpke, that doesn't entail the wear and tear on the trucks, which still is a concern. But yet when we discussed all this way back when, everybody remembers that the cutoff that we chose was between 15 and 20,000. It might be okay to go to Republic for that amount of money instead of driving to Rumpke. However, it's been reported to me that Republic is now dumping at Rumpke. So there, when we were at $39 a ton and it went to 53, that's more than likely why. They told me it was going to Louisville and then they had to go north. All that, I believe they're doing a lot of their dumping now at Rumpke and having to pay that fee. That being said, we're still at 30,000. I still think we should keep going to Rumpke due to the fact that we don't know what's going to happen to Republic anyway, and then with the contracts. So we're kind of still doing well.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky.
make a motion, put an ordinance on the table at next council meeting to increase 2016 by 15,000 and 2021 by 9350.
Mr. President, I second that. Motion by Mr. Taberky, second by Bob Fullerton to place the additional appropriation ordinance on the table for next meeting. Is there any remarks? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah. I've got the September 2021 end-of-month receipts. Tax collections for September were $1,503,718. Tax refunds for September were $2,013.46. Payments from the e-file system for September were $3,780.54. $1,875.63 in delinquent taxes were collected with capital recovery. $1,760.41 in delinquent tax was collected from the Ohio Attorney General's office. September 2021 is down 1.63% from September 2020. And that includes a report.
Thank you. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Taberky.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank Brandy Schulmeyer for emceeing last week's Meet the Candidate Night, and Nicole Klungel for supplying the cookies. I know state of Kentucky is looking at giving their first responders an extra bonus. I just want to throw it out there. Maybe we can do a bonus for the police, fire, and service departments who never missed a beat during the pandemic for, like, say, $100 a month per person. And if they retired in the middle of the pandemic, where they get 6 months or whatever for worth $100. People are retired. We got to look at when they retired, because they can't get any money from the village for a certain amount of time. But maybe some people might have to be their payment be delayed. So I just want to throw it out there if anybody else has any thoughts or ideas.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
any thoughts of just making it a lump sum payment versus doing it monthly, or is there a reason why you'd want to do it monthly?
Buy these monthly, like Coal Gas Service Department retired during the middle or during that period. So instead of getting everybody the same amount, do it at like $100 a month. If a guy worked 10 months, he gets $1,000 versus the guy who worked 15 months gets $1,500. That's why I thought do it monthly.
Mr. President. Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Yeah, Don, I don't have any heartburn on that. I mean, I could get in, support of something for our first responders.
Mr. President,
Ms.
so
Betty.
Don, you talked about during the pandemic.
What I figured, I believe the governor shut everything down mid-March or so, like go April through June of this year. So it'd be 15 months or so.
Okay, I just wasn't sure of your time frame. Okay. I would definitely consider something like that.
Anyone else? Give it thought and discuss
Mr.
it again
President.
at the next committee of the whole, or are you
I have a
looking to
question,
put an
Mr.
ordinance? Mr. Schultz.
Do we know, is this something that would come out of the COVID money we received? Is that the thought, or?
I did receive an update from Congressman Shabbat's office as of May 10th, 2021. You're allowed to pay premiums retroactively for work performed, so we're allowed to use the COVID money to go back and pay people that we didn't give any bonuses to back then. You look puzzled, Mr. Stuchel.
No, I'm just shocked that you'd bring something like this up, but yes, no, I think it's a fine idea. But, no, I think it's a fine idea, and it does include service, correct? You did say that?
Police, fire, and service, yes, they never missed a beat.
And we could go back and track to see what's there as far as, that's not an issue. I mean, if it's, you're saying 100 a month?
That's the figure I
suggesting-
came, that's about $1,500. I think there's possibly 50, 60 employees, so you're looking somewhere close to 100 grand, possibly.
Mr. President?
Ms. Bettinghouse.
And so, Don, you said something about if they've been working, or, so you would want to put some parameters and guidelines around if somebody was sick for a period of time, or, I just want to make sure that we have all of our
I would just say
parameters.
if they were eligible to work, they were supposed to be working, they would get the money. If somebody was sick for a couple of days, I'm not going to
And I don't mean
penalize
for a
them.
couple of days. I didn't mean that. So I just didn't know
Um,
what you meant by if they were able to work, so.
Like, somebody retired 6 months in, they would get six months, $600 instead of the whole 1,500, whatever.
And
my
and this
thought
may
was.
not have happened with anybody, but what if somebody went out on leave for 3 months?
That we have to look at. I don't know if anybody did or not. As far as I know, nobody did.
I just want to make sure that before we decide to do that, that we have our parameters and our guidelines established, what we would consider before we go ahead and move forward and go back and look at all that. Because I wouldn't want to say, well, if somebody was out on leave for 3 months, but let me go back and see who it was and how many. We just have to establish parameters before.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeVere.
can we put this on committee of the whole agenda for the next committee of the whole? Thank you.
I will do so. Ms. Household, did you?
That's exactly what I was gonna suggest, to have all the, and to check with Peggy and see all the,
Compile the figures to
Yep.
see what we're talking about?
how much we're
Okay.
talking about, stuff like that.
Consider it done.
Just get with the law director and make sure.
We can do it. Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. This is the last reminder that the upcoming Block Watch meeting will take place on October 21st, 6:30 PM in the upper level of the municipal building. Special guest speaker Wild Bill Helton from the Service Department will be present to tell you everything you wanted to know about recycling but were afraid to ask. That concludes my report.
Thank you, I think. Service, Mr. Schultmeyer.
I've got the service report for September 2021. The service department placed 31 trucks in residences. They placed 20 dumpsters at residences. They placed 365, or there were 365 special pickups from residences. 191 tons of garbage went to the landfill. As far as recycling, 38.75 tons of recycling material were picked up. 1/2 pound of scrap aluminum, 1.65 pounds of brass, and 8,980 pounds of scrap metal. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Public Improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank all the residents that took part in the mini-series of community events to go over the shopping center and the redevelopment of that. I think everybody's excited to see the next steps, and hopefully, once we receive those from the developer, we can share those with the community at whole. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Ms. Bettinghouse.
Thank you, Mr. President. So council has in front of them, or has had an opportunity to read the potential resolution that we would like to put on the table. I don't know if anybody has read through this enough to have any questions for either the committee or Valerie, and next steps for this. So first of all, any questions about the resolution?
Mr. President,
Mr.
Yes.
DeVerke.
Cindy, in there, see if I find it again now. The House Bill, or Senate Bill 119, House Bill 208, is that still in committee? Says whereas,
Where?
one,
Oh.
two, three, fourth whereas, the House, Senate, and House is currently considering the Ohio Fairness Act, SB 119, HB 208.
Donna, I don't know the answer to that. I thought one of them was out of committee, but one was still in committee. I don't know. I'd have to find that out. I don't know. Anybody else? The only question I had, and it really wasn't a question, it's just some verbiage, and it was just in the third paragraph. And it just had, health was identified twice, health and health care. I didn't know if there was a difference. So it was just some of those, that. And then in the second sentence of that same paragraph, it says including in the fields, and I was just thinking, for example, in the fields of. But those are only verbiage changes. It really has nothing to do to affect the outcome of the resolution. But Don, I would have to ask Valerie about that. I don't know. Would you want it stated different if it was in committee?
I'd just like to know what the exact, I don't want to vote on
Where's that?
something and come back, all of a sudden they pass something that's completely different than we thought it was. I have no clue.
Okay. Well, since I don't have some of the answer to these and there's questions, should we then just wait until next committee of whole? So we can talk to Valerie. I don't have these answers without Valerie. I don't know, Jonathan, do you have an?
Mr. President, so I do know that the language was drafted by Equality Ohio, so, I mean, this wasn't all 100% Valerie.
Right.
So, you know, I guess we obviously can, you know, reference the particular bills and see where they are, but either way, I mean, it's basically showing support for that at the state level, and I would assume that what was presented is correct. So, you know, again, if we need to verify that, I'm sure we can also look up online as quick and get an answer even before Valerie. So,
Okay.
whatever you feel like you wish to do.
Well, I would like to, go ahead, John.
I say just put it on the table.
Yeah, that's what my suggestion was, to put it on the table for council to get it, start the reading. Is anybody opposed? Okay.
Motion.
Make a motion. Make a motion to put the resolution on the table for council.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Mr. Don DeBerke to put the inclusion resolution on the table. Any remarks from council? Not all those
Mr.
in-
President,
Ms.
I will
Bettinghouse.
follow up on that.
Okay. All those in favor of placing it on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Anything else, Ms. Bettinghouse?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's all.
Okay. All right.
Mr. President,
Mayor Stuchel.
could I direct a question to Mrs. Bettinghouse? With reference to the proposed dispensary, the medical marijuana dispensary that we have in the village, again, whether or not that was something that would be, you know, referred to laws, contracts, and claims to review, whether or not we want to set any requirements as far as zoning, location, that kind of thing, whether or not that's necessary. Valerie, obviously not being here, but referenced that might be a good idea because we do not have any restrictions at this point.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
I know 4 or 5 years ago when they started talking about them, we had looked at putting one in town. But they didn't get the license or whatever.
Mr. President,
Mr. Stuchel.
that is correct. And I do remember that enough because the proposed location was in the shopping center, and they had to be so many feet from the library, they had to be so many feet from a school, all of that. This particular request is actually, what makes this difficult is an actual residential location at the end of Broerman. So basically, it's Valerie's researching, you know, whether or not that is possible for that area. It's not in a house, but it's actually across the street from residences. So she's researching that and is going to get back in touch with me, but she actually suggested that we give some consideration to whether or not we want to establish any future restrictions or not.
What's the zoning of the place now?
I've got to look at that particular location.
Mr. President?
Ms. Bettingham?
So from my perspective, I think, I always would willingly take guidance from law director. So if that's her highly suggested, then I would suggest we put it in laws, contracts, and claims.
Okay.
I mean, anybody else have any objection to that? No.
Okay. Anything else?
I think we would like to establish when we could have a meeting, because we have that on the agenda, and we also have the short-term rentals. Without Valerie here, she has to be at that one meeting. I don't know if she has to be at the short-term rental ones.
Mr. President,
Mayor Stooge.
I mean, we had the last meeting. I think it's a matter, we know pretty much direction we want to go on that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of trying to put together a draft at least with that. And again, if Leanne has something to contribute and we want to be able to put something together, I don't know how, I think we're fairly clear that I don't think that process is going to get drug out. So if you feel like you want to try to schedule a meeting and then whether she's going to be there, I mean, if you want to do something for early, next month, whatever you think. I mean, and we could
Okay.
always reschedule if we had to.
Okay. All right. I'll get with everybody after the meeting.
All right. Anything else, Ms. Bettingham? Good, okay. Marketing, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have several updates to share with the community. These updates are also included in the October 2021 newsletter. October 18th, 2021, the Historical Society will be presenting Cincinnati Body Snatchers by guest speaker Mary Cunningham. Also, a very early reminder that December 4th will be Christmas in St. Bernard from 6 to 9 p.m. at City Hall. Also, if anyone in the community is interested in singing, the Delta Kings Barbershop Chorus welcomes new members. You can join on Monday nights at 7 p.m. in Centennial Hall. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Ms. Housefeld.
No report, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
before we move on, we'll have ordinance 16.
That's what I was just going to say.
Okay.
That she gave me, I got the email after the agenda was made, but it's just a codified ordinance update.
I just got one question, I guess, for Jonathan. I will talk about community gardens and that. And section 1153.01, section D, says they're not allowed summer gardens in this area. Is that, we want to keep that in there? Should we?
Mr. President, so this was specifically for the Heritage Hill District. So as far as that wasn't really a proposed area for a community garden, we have some other areas that we want to focus on. I mean, if you feel that you want to remove that language, I mean, that was already, this proposed language was already, this was what was drafted, basically, and posted. So I'm comfortable with not having a community garden in the Heritage Hill District. I mean, the initial change to that was specifically, and what was actually drafted, only changed the text to allow for basically retail and service, which was what was prohibited, and that was what basically was being restricted for the local businesses. So that was the only context of the particular zoning meetings and hearings that were done beforehand, and it was not it was not brought up to make the change for community gardens.
Mr. President.
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
So you're saying, Jonathan, on this, it's only retail and service, the Heritage Hill, which is from approximately chili time up to Dairy Queen. So don't we have businesses that are already retail in that location?
Mr. President,
Mayor Stooge.
the issue came about, I think it was in 2011, that there were changes that were made that eliminated, that restricted that. So yes, there are other businesses that are there. Food service, the liquor establishments are not considered retail. I mean, that is exempt. Basically, what it would affect would be any of the, little niche boutique type shops that could potentially go into some of the existing storefronts, but the others were grandfathered. So it basically, yes, there's existing, but we want to allow continued opportunity, which would otherwise be prohibited.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
make a motion for ordinance 16, 2021 on table.
Second that.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to place the codified ordinance update on the table for next meeting. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right, this time, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? Please state your name and address for the record.
Nicole Klungel, 551 Church. A couple things happened at the last council meeting that I just thought needed to be commented on. Those of you who are here know that several people attended in order to support the non-discrimination ordinance. It is not easy to come up here and speak publicly in front of you. And the people who took time out of their day, arranged childcare, did whatever they needed to do to be here, and then surmounted the intimidation factor of speaking to you, deserve full respect for that. And there was a comment made by a member of the administration that attempted to diminish that by saying they were only here to support a friend. No, they were here to support human rights. And I really wish somebody had said something supportive to those people making the comment to counteract that attempt to diminish what they were doing. Second, that same member of the administration who was speaking in a professional capacity to somebody at this podium, citizens like me, we don't have the ability to have a dialogue with somebody speaking at this podium. Only people here on the floor do. In that professional capacity, this member of the administration said there's a certain amount of discrimination that she was willing to tolerate, that it just wasn't worth preventing that level of discrimination. I don't work with numbers, I work with people. Perhaps that's why I don't think there's any amount of discrimination that we should tolerate. And that is an unhealthy attitude for this administration to have.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? All right, if not, then I show 2 ordinances and 1 resolution for the next council meeting. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Ms. Houseful to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. We are adjourned.